Let's begin. Okay, so before we start this video, two things. One, for those of you guys who are curious about the selling of RobCore rings, that was not a one-off. I'm going to sell them again, but I'm going to do it again. I'm not going to leave you guys just once. Two, those rings sold out in 2 hours. Now, I have not found a way on Etsy to show that the rings were sold out, right? As soon as a single ring type sold out, then like Etsy automatically delisted it, right? So that's why some of you guys went to the store and you didn't see anything there because they were all sold out, right? But in 2 hours, they were all gone. For those of you guys who did buy RobCore rings, you should be able to go onto Etsy and you should see the status of your order. They should all be on their way. The only exception is we got an order from a guy in Norway and we had a little bit of a complication. It was on our end. It was not anything you did wrong, but we fixed it and everything is all sorted out. So we will order more RobCore rings and we will send out more RobCore rings and I will place more up for sale. So keep your ears open and I will let you guys know when you can.
So yes, I finally cooked something. Yeah.
I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving week. I know I did. I definitely needed that break. I absolutely needed that break. I was going nuts. I think we've been probably doing this nonstop for about 2 years without really taking a break. So I needed it. But we are picking back up with the conclusion of Exit Search. And initially I thought about doing each of these individuals separately, but I think at this point we can just kind of do all the videos together and just sort of call it a day. I do want to touch on the Hellions because we're going to skip over this. The Hellions is a totally unnecessary story. I'm not really sure why it was included in this in the first place. The only real takeaway, those of you guys who remember, the only real thing going on with the Hellions is that their goal was to get into Otherworld and steal the swords of Morocco so they couldn't even compete in the first place, which would basically seem to nullify the entire tournament. Now, as we saw, not all the fights were being done with swords. Really, only those who needed swords would be disqualified, but then Saturday probably would have changed things. What ended up happening with the Hellions, however, is that it was revealed that Sinister simply wanted to just steal genes of mutants that existed out there. And once the other Hellions found out, Sinister was to a degree, and then came back through the Krakoan gate, back into the main Marvel universe, so to speak, and then pretty much killed all the Hellions, and that was basically it. Right, so there's a little bit going on there, but not a whole lot. Certainly nothing that works, the one just covering the entirety of the story. But what's really important here is they pick up the last part of the tournament, which took place in Crete. And this is done by virtue of Cable kind of face off against Day. Now, of course, Day is the wife of Randy, right? She's the wife of Psycho. And so Cable's kind of watching everything going, I just really kind of engaging in this, knowing that he's probably going to have to kill the wife of Doug Ramsey. And in that moment of hesitation, Day gets the upper hand. Now, here's the big difference. Because Cable says things like, you know, if I had been who I was before, then this probably never would have been a problem in the first place. And that's true. One of the things, what you guys want really to use is...
If he counters it, I quit.
Marvel introduced a retcon by basically having Cable's younger self kill his older self and then take his place as kind of like the new Cable. It was a way for Marvel to kind of reinvigorate the character a little bit. I think Cable had a lot of great storytelling going on, but I think the situation is a lot more interesting and useful. They're going to make stories a lot more intriguing, such as it is, we ended up getting younger Cable instead. Now, the problem with younger Cable is he's not quite battle hardened yet, not in the same way that his older self is. And he's right when he says, if this was his older self, he would have killed Bay like that, right? It would have just been over. Like, he would have just killed her in an instant. And would have been like, cool. And he would have been next up Ramsey died, and he probably would have comforted him and said, hey man, I'm sorry, but like, who the hell? The entire kingdom of Krakoa and the entire, like, our entire Earth is more important than your wife, right? So, with that being the case, with Bay getting the upper hand, with Cable kind of hesitating for a moment, Bay basically topples him, she breaks his arm, and then she goes for the killing blow, and Doug jumps in and asks her to stop, right? He says, like, stop. Like, you basically won, this was supposed to be finished, right? And Saturnine had kind of declared this was going to be a battle to the death, right? It was going to be a fight to the actual death itself, but then she kind of relinquishes here and says, but some deaths are of the spirit, right? So, in the end, I award the point to Morocco. Krakoa is now down, this is 18-6, right? They're down by 12 points. This is a pretty huge number to have to catch up. Now, from there...
It's like, I generally did job, I subscribe to him, but that's not what I'm trying to watch right now. Oh, Guinea Pig 3. I'm good. Let's see what's inside. Extra. Yeah, cool. Not inside Xbox. There, play it.
Some video games go down in history as classics, treasured in the collective memory of the gaming community. But this isn't always the case, or at least it hasn't always been that way. What about the games that made a huge impact on us when we first played them, but for whatever reason seem to have now drifted into the shadows of popular culture? Games for which there is no fan art, no crossplay, no petition for an HD remake. We can probably all think of games we loved, but that it felt as if only we played, and the Outside Extra and Outside Xbox teams were no different. Did these games really happen, or did we simply dream them? Let's find out, because here are the forgotten games that we still think about at night. But it didn't. It's brilliant and it's amazing, and THQ Nordic have bought the rights to it, and we're going to get a whole expansion now. We're all going to know everything else. Yes. So I'm instead going to go with one that is the most child thing, and I want to tell you what we're going to do. And I think you're ready for a sleeping. Look at this, with this little manual. This game is a fantastic little top-down puzzle game where you play Casper and go around Lipstaff Manor with your own kind of 16-bit painted 50-minute Richie who's chatting to you, little cutscenes. Basically, you have to go around and find the pieces of the Lazarus pieces, which is really captured back in life. There are no enemies in this game. It is just a puzzle top-down adventure game where you go through find little tools and stuff. That's why I didn't like it. I went through vents a lot because as Casper, as a ghost, you could vents. I actually read up an old review of it, and you're like, it's a nice little shoot. It's like when you're a kid and you start playing a game, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm just not grown up enough to get it, and then you grow up into an adult, and you're like, oh no. These puzzle games back in the day weren't very clear. The all LucasArts game. Casper himself is actually a little bit translucent, like you can kind of see through him, which apparently at the time was amazing graphics. I don't know, I was just a bit like, yeah, he's a ghost. Like you go out garden, and I just like a lot of
Oh, that hash is good.
Isn't at the forefront.
I mean, I could have added more salt to it. That was some good hash. Spicy. I added a little bit too much red pepper, but I likes it like that. Yeah, baby, I like it like that.
It's really nice gameplay because you didn't have enemies to get you all the time.
Well, that's generally my problem these days, that I do only eat 1 meal a day. I might eat some fruit, but I don't eat enough for my weight and for what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put on weight.
So the development team that made the original Team super famous, super successful game, try and guess what they then went on to make. It was a weird, four-character, dystopian sci-fi puzzle game for Project Eden. Bloody loved it. Sounds like that right
I had friends in middle school that was talk about that shit.
Yeah, people never tell us the whole story. Likes to keep a little bit back as a surprise. Still, it sounds like a dumb mission though. For members of the UPA,
settle down, people. Sounds like a year.
So the premise of Project Eden is essentially all the rich people are at the top of these giant towers and all the poor people are at the bottom. Classic classic dystopian setup, which is introduced you in an intro movie where some very old school 3D rendered people wander around, and a now sort of terrifying little girl drops a teddy bear, and you watch it drop all the way down from the rich people at the top down to the hole in the four characters. One of whom is the captain, he's sort of forcing his way through problems, and then there's the hacker lady, and she can hack terminals, and there's the tech guy who can repair mechanical things, and then there's the giant robot with a rocket launcher who can water through gas and fire and anyway, you can version. Every single level of this game is suspended at some point in this sort of technological strata. Not the same different all the way up to the sort of speck of light at the top of these towers, and then all the way down into the sort of bottomless abyss. You can play the entire thing in split screen co-op, which is absolutely, for the time, bonkers. Not that I could ever persuade any of my friends to sit through this weird sci-fi game for more than about 10 minutes. No, honestly, guys, it takes 5 minutes. I'm not going to say it's perfect. I mean, the voice acting is terrible.
Okay, people, you have a problem. I suppose you all heard of real meat.
Oh yeah, it sure would.
Okay, cut it out.
The other thing about it is that there's this problem with the pathfinding. There's not really a pathfinding traditional sense where characters get stuck places and, trapped in the doorway and they're still taking the spot, like a lot of AI companions. The problem with the pathfinding in Project Eden is that it follows you exactly, like baby ducks. You know how baby ducks imprint on their mother and then follow her around? So, say for example you're struggling with the slightly wonky control, and you mount a sort of handrail and then walk along it for a bit and then drop off. All three of your companions will all do exactly the same thing and climb up onto the handrail, walk along a bit and fall off. But still love it and still think about it. Late at night, and everyone's going to bed, and it's like staring at the ceiling, and thinking about Project Eden. Yes, although it's not ever be made so first game I'm going to talk about today is Donald Duck's Quackshot, I think of it, which is a Sega Mega Drive game starring Donald Duck, the best Disney character, starting with Disney fans. Yeah, he knows. So it was the Indiana Jones style Donald thing. They do that a lot where Donald is basically Indiana Jones, he has adventures and stuff. It was that form of Donald Duck. And the story was he was in Caesar's library, and he opens this book and a treasure map falls out. He's find the treasure, and then he's like, "Come on, underage nephews, climb in this plane with me and we'll go to India." And Daisy comes out, she's like, "Donald, you were supposed to be at my house for lunch an hour ago." He's like, "There's no time, Daisy, for God's sake. I'm off to get a treasure." It's only a game in that you unlock new equipment as you went through the game, and it unlocked new areas of the world. So you could see things, but you didn't know how to get past obstacles because you had no equipment. So you start out with a gun that fires plungers. And then you get an upgrade to that, which instead of yellow plungers, you have red plungers. And the red plungers stick to walls. So you can make ladders up walls with plungers. You get home to about to visit Gyro dearly. It had a very odd atmosphere to it, with like a lot of those early Disney video games do, and they have to find a sort of reason to have an ice level and fire level. That. So everything just is slightly weird and attached in a way that when you're a kid, you look at it later on, you're like, "Man, why did Donald Duck fight a zombie Viking? Why is Donald in Dracula's castle?" something you'll like, Luke. I know you're a big fan of this aspect of Donald's personality. So the game, as well as like your house, like the equipment you've got, it also has a temper meter. You collect chili peppers. Just that's like raging his way through the level, just demolishing everything in his path. He's completely invulnerable, just squawking his head off. And then, yeah, he will just snap out of the back and just nothing happens. Yeah, the man is great. I don't know why more people don't know this, because I haven't really spoken to many people who played that. I just started to play Super Nintendo and they didn't know it. But I know that Christian Donlan from years ago was a big fan. My guy was bloody missing now. Everyone's like, oh, Past Evolution. Remember that? I do remember that. It wasn't just that. The My Forgotten Game is one that came out in 2004. It came out on every platform. Adventure game. You play someone called John Batic. You're a researcher in parapsychology, and wake up one day mysteriously, and some things appear to happen to you, and now you have weird psychic powers.
This is too weird.
And throughout the game, you find out how these things happen, and there are shadowy organizations. The story relating to the two stories and I think this game deserves to be remembered is because a lot of the games you play now really, really strongly remind me of it, especially something like Dishonored. You had like a standard sort of weapons and stuff, and then you also had these psychic powers that could be used sometimes for fun. You can play people around using the psychic powers. You could also use them for stealth. Go crazy, like you use the powers however you want. So really, really strongly reminds me now of games like Dishonored and Hitman, and a kind of style of game that is pretty well known and well understood and ubiquitous, but at the time I guess I didn't really appreciate how unusual it was or how commonplace those ideas were going to become in gaming. It's really fun to play as well, and like I am not someone who enjoys stealth games or ever taking the stealthy option. Ellen is nodding because she knows. But this is one of the very few games I've ever played that made me enjoy a stealthy approach.
Yay!
The story is kind of blocky and big conspiracies and like secret research things.
You have samples all over the country. You're too late. People!
And obviously you have to like uncover the conspiracy of how you have powers and shut it all down. And one thing that's noteworthy about this game is that it was developed by Free Radical Design, who were best known for doing the Time Splitters games, which are also, discontinued, and we may never get another Time Splitters game, but I feel like those games do have a place in video game pop culture memory canon. Say Time Splitters, and people who haven't played them, they're like, oh, I sort of remember that and understand it to be. There's like some of the art style in common. I think there's a sort of slight cartoonishness to the animation and the way everything looks. I think you kind of feel that influence in it's a well-built game, and it's not afraid to do some really weird stuff. The rights to Second Sight were actually acquired not that long ago by PHP Nordic. I think it bought the stuff as well, so you never know, it could come back. But I'm really sure how likely being acquired by PHP Nordic maybe re-release maybe a master or something, but who knows? It really could. really good. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good game. You know, there's a possible universe in which you get a sequel and now instead of the Hitman games, you have like the second sight expanded universe and kind of combatic lore and stuff like that. Who knows? But it was a cool game and did you watch the trailer for it then? Cool, right? Yeah, it's quite cool. That's a great game.
Well, friends, I've brought you here, I've gathered you, assembled you before me to talk about a little game called Barbie, actually. No, just Barbie. That's it. Yeah, this was so early in video game history. They didn't even see fit to be like Barbie Origins, or like Barbie Evolution. Barbie came out in 1984. That's how early it was, and that's not when I played it. I played it much later because I inherited a collection of Commodore 64 games, and at the time I was too young to understand that they were old and sometimes crappy games. In that collection, boy, there was some Jackson. But not Barbie. Well, maybe Barbie. I mean, I do think about this game probably about 50% of my waking hours because I really enjoy it. I didn't even like Barbie, but then that said, the graphics and such that you couldn't tell it was Barbie. It's the sort of collection of kids with yellow hair. It was basically a kind of dress up and driving game. You dress up, you just Barbie up by taking her to shops in her Barbie and you're dressing to take Barbie on a date, so you go to the right shop to buy the right clothes. At the end of the game, when I recall correctly, you go on a date with Ted. But while you're out collecting clothes for your very important there's really sad lessons in this game when I think about it. While you're out doing this, Ken can like move the goalpost and like try to call you while you run home because no one had a mobile phone, I guess, then. And he's like, Barbie, we're not going to the opera now, we're going to play together. And then the end fail state of the game is you and Ken at a tennis match and you're wearing an opera gown and evening gloves. So that's, imagine the embarrassment. Imagine, game over, Barbie. It's all over for you. That was that. In my defense, I have extremely fond memories of it because I played it with my sister. We had this collection of C64 games. And just a few of them had any sort of appeal for very young children. And this was very simple and kind of like it was surprisingly compelling. I guess you could compare it to like a web-based game that you might sink some time into these days. You know, very simple and straightforward and kind of compelling. And you know, sort of co-operative things deciding what to put value in, how you're driving. That was like, that was the first game we played together and then move on to like, probably better stuff, like, so, at the beginning of our co-op gaming career, and that's probably why I have such strong and fond memories of it. Can you imagine? I've been trying to connect to some Commodore 64 to a HD television. Back again, another game to share with you, and yet again, which is also a licensed product. Oh, hey, the first one that's here. What's wrong?
Either a lot of the puzzle pieces are missing, or it's the easiest puzzle ever.
Rugrats! And this is also my copy that has been... We moved house in it. Yay! This game came out the same. Upon an episode of Rugrats. So there's one where Chucky uses glasses, and so that is, I think, from what I remember, it's a game of hide and seek. One particular game that I absolutely loved was Weedtone, and the multiplayer one, so me and my sister would often just keep this up, play a good Weedtone game that made me fun. Also, a level that I didn't like, not because it was bad, but the ghost with the shiny light and the ghost stick it in the dark house. Thing is, I know more people out there have played this game, and I'm sad that not more remembered as like a classic. But yeah, it's got all the levels, such glasses. Ice Cream Mountain, that is the illegal. All of them were based on episodes of the show. One of the best episodes being Instant on Hour 7, where Tommy has to collect Cashapp. And that is obviously the best episode ever. If you like Rugrats and basically want to replay episodes of it, but in like a weirdly rendered 3D world, which was pretty good at the time. The apparently reviews at the time said the gameplay isn't great, which is wrong. But the visuals, the presentation is brilliant, and because of the various accessibility things, it is really good. So yeah,
The second game we're going to talk about is a game called Bioford. Very early 3D game. It's a sci-fi adventure in which you play a cyborg who wakes up in like a hospital / prison with no memory of 2 years of how he got there or why he now has weird things that are just not enough of them. One of the very, very first things you do in the game is to glue alien to death with his own severed arm while shouting, "I have no wish to harm you."
No, we should work together. And how do you do the march?
So big maybe then, aren't they? And I was probably too young to play by 14 time, but I remember the story. It really left a lot up to you to sort of discover as you went along. So you have no memory of where you're there. The space station is quite deserted. I think due to technical reasons because they didn't have two characters on screen at once. But it had this very sort of lonely, mysterious feel to it. I feel like a lot of things.
People deserve to die after what you did to me.
You're like, oh, I kind of ran into it. A big word. Yeah, so guys, check it out if you haven't probably tried it. It's good. I think I like it. So those were some of the games that have lingered in our minds and forgotten. And you're like, oh my god, who remembers this? Did you play that? And people are like, no, what? You're like, no. And if we've done this video right, then right now you are currently thinking of all of those games that you played and it feels like only you played and maybe didn't get the recognition they deserve or don't get that recognition nowadays. And I want to see those suggestions or what you're thinking about in the comments. Writing in the internet. You'll observe it, other people will see it, and you'll never know. You might find the one other person who played that game, and you can both nerd out over Nickelodeon 3D Movie Maker or something. Yeah, but if you enjoyed this, then why not watch some of our other videos? Here's one from us. It's all about ways games mess with your brain, games you can't stop seeing in real life. And down here, there's one from our sister channel, Outside Xbox. It's all about levels that you get in every darn game. And if you enjoyed this, then why not subscribe and ring the bell? It's somewhere down here, I think. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Thanks for watching.
I need a sub.
We all have ambitions. My ambition is to get to the intro to a video without something going majorly wrong. Three things. New record. Although ambition is an admirable quality, sometimes it goes too far, as in the case with these ambitious video games that overpromised, underdelivered, and ended in disappointment. Enjoy and remember this important lesson. Seriously, can we get those dogs out of here?
Never forget what we have sacrificed for the good of humanity.
Hey, did you guys know that Thor and Odin and Asgard, all that stuff, that was a thing before the 2011 movie starring Chris Hemsworth? Yeah, me either. Hey, Andy. Sorry. It turns out Norse mythology traces its roots back many centuries to ancient Scandinavia. Norse mythology-inspired action RPG 2 Human, meanwhile, can trace its own origins back nearly as far, so protracted was its development history.
Odin's technology makes gods appear.
2 Human was an Xbox 360 exclusive that reimagined ancient Norse myth as high-tech science fiction, in which you play cyber god Baldur, who protects humans from bad robots. Most of the time. The game was first announced in the remote historic period known as 1969. Initially, it was going to be a gigantic RPG for the PlayStation. Later, it was going to be a title for the Nintendo GameCube. Then, after languishing for nearly a decade in development hell, or should that be development Helheim? Not the reference. After that happened, it actually launched as an Xbox 360 exclusive.
Would it be that you like this young man? He is special.
So when 2 Human did finally come out, expectations were sky high. The prime ambition was for 2 Human to be the first part.
I got some dicks I need to lick. Never
cool.
could.
The developer had called 2 Human to Xbox 360's God of War. And it was best described as both boring and super hot. 2 Human's ambitiousness went as far as scrapping traditional control and camera schemes in favour of its own iteration system, which was as bold as it was bad. I say was because it's actually no longer possible to buy a new copy of 2 Human, either in stores or online. See, after the game came out, 2 Human development studio Silicon Knights lost a tetchy legal dispute with Epic Games over 2 Human's licensed use of Epic's Unreal Engine, following which Silicon Knights was ordered to recall and destroy all unsold copies. That's maybe why you've never seen a copy of this Xbox exclusive in the wild. Ever since that legal ruling, the game's been kind of low-key. Low-key! Get it? Not mythology reference!
We succeed or fail. I trust in your abilities.
True intent. Osaka Mishima hired a legendary swordmaster to create the ultimate weapon, the Daikatana.
Back in the 90s, everyone was obsessed with the idea of rockstar game developers. No one fitted the ball better than Season1.
Despite defeat, I am proud of us.
Also, who made Doom, one of the most successful and controversial games of all time. Unfortunately, in addition to Rockstar Hair, the other item in my first Rockstar starter kit is a Rockstar Eager. After the development of Quake with software, Romero clashed with fellow developers Spearman. He's like the keyboard player that stands at the back, but writes all the songs. Romero decided to strike out on his own, set up a new development studio, and create a game with his own singular vision. That game was called Daikatana, and it was a sort of cyberpunk, time-traveling.
Death itself cannot halt my quest
The game
for
relied on
justice.
deploying the skills of two advanced AI companions, Nikito Abihara and Superfly.
You're going to fight beside me.
And the only revolution happening will be you revolving your eyes when you do yet another stupid thing. It's like babysitting, only you're not getting paid to do it. And occasionally the baby will just sort of get stuck to a wall and you'll have to reset the whole babysitting scenario. Worse still, if your sidekick die, it's game over, and you have to spend the approach to self-preservation as a fire-juggling motorcycle stunt rider. To be fair, even babysitters can get paid if that happens. Daikatana was a hugely ambitious shooter RPG, but it just didn't work, making it one of the most high-profile video game flops of all time.
A battle lost, but not the war.
Not to be confused with Rockstar Games. People are pretty obsessed with those guys. Every 15 minutes. It was going to be on this list. I knew it was going to be on this list. Duke Nukem himself probably knew it was going to be on this list.
Damn, I'm looking good.
Well, regardless of what Duke thinks, the fact remains that Duke Nukem Forever spent 15 years in development hell before finally being released in 2011, and it was a sheer car crash of a game. Something literally. The reason for Duke's failure was the game's inconsistent vision. Its developers wanted Duke Nukem Forever to be groundbreaking in its gameplay and cutting edge in its technology, and so they ended up stuck on a never-ending treadmill of scrapping the game every few years and starting over. It was apparently a running joke at 3D Realms to stop director George Broussard from seeing new games, because he'd immediately want to take ideas from them and incorporate them into Duke Nukem Forever, causing more delays and more work for everyone. Kind of like how we don't let Mike watch the eating shows on TV because then he'll be off work for a week with summer came. Features rumoured to Duke Nukem Forever were gunfights on moving vehicles, entering codes on keypads with 2 fingers, dancing in games, riding a motorbike, and using an in-game computer to send actual emails. None of those things are in the footage we're showing you at the moment because they were all scrapped over the years in attempts to force the game into something approaching a releasing state.
Hey pal, what are you gonna do? Stand the ball all by yourself?
Some of the ambitious ideas survived into the full game, although not as groundbreakingly as the developers might have hoped.
Oh man! Just playing good.
15 years.
What the hell? No! Come on, no! This is disgusting!
Okay, I take it back.
Engine. Some kind. Wait. International Genetic Technologies and the dinosaur trial.
Trespasser was originally conceived of as a digital sequel to Jurassic Park: The Lost World, back when the Jurassic Park sequel was something to look forward to, not a punishment from an angry god. In Trespasser, you play as Anne, the only survivor of a train crash in Oklahoma. Dino training company Teejay like thieves. Anne must escape from the island using only her wit, her plot, and her health system to take the family in a happy. Got to stay alive long enough to get that thing lasered off, I expect. Prior to release, the developers of Trespasser claimed it would revolutionise PC gaming with a perfect, seamless world brimming with intelligent dinos. Unfortunately for them and us, the technology of the time meant that this was a lot easier said than done. As a result, Trespasser went moodily over budget several times, and features had to be fudged, stripped back, or removed entirely. And even then, some of the features that managed to stay in the finished game often didn't work the way they were supposed to. You found Dino AI, for example, which was supposed to have the dinosaur cycle through different emotions, but it thinks that the emotion state of other dinosaurs never worked properly, which the developers said, by just having the dinos be at maximum anger all the time.
4 shots.
You'd probably feel the same way if I were in Jurassic Park. There are still some groundbreaking ideas in the final game. It was one of the first games to have an open environment full of trees. The first game to use ragdoll.
Prepare yourself, Heliod. I have killed one god
inverse
already.
kinematics.
Together, we can exact justice.
It also allows you to interact with the world in a wholly new way with the use of Anne's right arm, with which you could pick up objects, wave them around, and throw them at things. However, the ability on the Max 2 proved to be a problem, since it was awkward to control and often ended up looking a bit weird. So weird, in fact, that it's been cited as the inspiration for both Octodad and Surgeon Simulator, which, if you've played either of those games, you'll suspect that this is not what Trespasser was aiming for. Eventually, thanks to many compromises, the developers managed to get the game into a state where it could be shipped and sold to people for money. Not many people, sadly, as thanks to bad reviews and poor word of mouth, it sold only about 50,000 copies. I guess the developers were so preoccupied with whether or not they should, they didn't stop to think if they could.
Wherever you are. Mr. President!
Resident Evil games are about 2 things: zombies and massive buildings with impractical lock systems. 3 things we can count bad acting, and we do.
Chill. This house is dangerous. You're terrible humans. Ouch!
That's why it was such a surprise to play the first demo of Resident Evil 6 to realise that large portions of the game were going to be a cover-based release of Tuesday.
Enemy fire! Enemy fire! Companies engaged! All troops spread out! Return fire! Come in, HQ. We're taking fire at the two parts.
It turns out that behind the scenes, Capcom had decided that survival horror was too small a market, and they wanted Resident Evil to be talked about in the same breath as Call of Duty, which, I mean, obviously they haven't heard us talk about Call of Duty. That said, they didn't want to entirely abandon the series' roots, and so ended up making 4 different campaigns, each with its own story, characters, and gameplay style. Leon Kennedy's campaign was the closest to the classic Resident Evil games. In it, he explored a spooky university at night.
You alright? I will be with my mother. I called her cell, but we got cut off. You know she's here somewhere.
On the other hand, the Redfield's campaign was a cover-based shooter that brought to mind war.
Alpha to HQ. A route's blocked by a BOW.
Change course from Route 1 to Route 4.
Noah's campaign, by way of contrast, had you pursued by a giant unkillable monster, while Jake, who looked like an action game hero from the late 2000s, delivered Nathan Drake-style twists. Finishing all of those unlocked a fourth campaign starring Resident Evil series regular Agent 1. But by this point, most people had stopped playing because the other campaigns were mostly a gore and trudge full of mediocre shooting that burdened you with an AI co-op partner dumber than the zombies you would
Technically, you.
Ultimately, Resident Evil 6 tried to be too many things at once and largely ended up a hot mess of consistent games that put people off instead of drawing in new fans to the series. And they got amazing episodes, including some of the people some of the time, and all of the people some of the time, that you can never cram 4 separate campaigns into a Resident Evil game and expect it to be any good. Paraphrase. Still, after the poor sales of Resident Evil 6, Capcom went back to the drawing board, which led to last year's brilliant and terrifying Resident Evil 7, which really took the series back to its roots. It's horrible, horrible roots. The entire universe. I heard one guy did it all on his own in like 7 days. And I think he took one of his days off. Turns out it's a little harder than that, as tiny indie studio Hello Games discovered when they went from making a game about a man with motorbike called Joe Danger to making a game that promised an entire universe with 18 quintillion planets called No Man's Sky. And if you're studying the complexity number 18 quintillion, it's the number of Simpsons episodes you run. There were plenty of things Hello Games wanted to achieve with No Man's Sky, including large-scale galactic battles you can participate in, accurate planetary physics, and proper multiplayer. You know, the sort where you can actually see the other players. When the game launched, it had none of those things, as pointed out by approximately everyone on Earth. Depending on how charitable you were feeling, these missing features were either broken promises or straight-up lies. Or if you work in PR for Hello Games, it's simply a objective. Credit to Hello Games though, they continued working on No Man's Sky in a year and a half between, and many of the features that they originally promised have arrived in free updates to the game. What's more, there's another huge update on the way to mark the game's arrival on Xbox One this summer. We're not sure exactly what No Man's Sky Next will include, but one thing's for sure, it's going to be another monster apology letter to everyone who felt wronged by the state the game was originally released. Okay, Hello Games, our hearts are open and we're ready to love again. Right, I'm off to set up the outside Xbox PR department. We're not bad at games, we're just exploring the area underneath the difficulty curve. Yep, that's it. Print the press release.
The picture that you see in your head when you first come up with a game idea, like Fable for example, the picture in my head was of this amazing lush world of every tree and every leaf being modelled and, you know, the character being so full of detail. It's amazing. Then normally in the past, the image that I've seen when the game's been finished just was 100 times less than what I saw in my head originally.
Alright, let's get one thing straight. I like the Fable games. I like Fable 1, I like Fable 2, and I like Fable 3, and those are all the Fable games. And those are all the Fable games. But despite totally typical and commercial reception, the Fable series of role-playing games has never quite shaken off a reputation for making promises it didn't keep. And it all started with Fable 1, because that's how numbers work. Before the launch of Fable, the game's creator, Peter Molyneux, talked a big talk about what his groundbreaking new RPG would bring to the Xbox. Among his attention-grabbing claims, Fable 1
Bring bread and water for the wheel.
2004, it
Come
Fable multiplayer didn't arrive until Fable 2, 4 years later. Molyneux also captured 2 when you could use the software in Fable 1.
Ketra's
you might get
love
married and
is
have
your
a
shield.
baby, if that's part of your heroic fantasy. However, the ability to have kids did not feature in the final game. Again, you had to wait until Fable 2 when your dream hero could father or mother and heroic offspring.
Bringing a child into the world brings a new perspective of all things.
Then there was the notorious, if vague, suggestion that you, as a player, would be able to knock an acorn off a tree, which would then grow into an oak over the course of the game. And the reason you can't remember the advanced tree growth simulations in Fable 1 is that there wasn't any. In some way, this acorn came to symbolise the mismatch between ambition and execution in Fable games, and specifically, Teejay Molyneux, who did talk to that mismatch in a forum post in which he wrote, "If I have mentioned any feature in the past which for whatever reason didn't make it as I described into Fable, I apologise. Every feature I have ever talked about was in development, but not all made it. Often the reason is that the feature did not make sense. For example, 3 years ago I talked about trees growing as time passed. The team did post this, but it took so much processor time, 15%, that the feature is not worth leaving in. 15% acorn. Yep, the numbers check out. So nothing I said was groundless hype, but people expecting specific features which couldn't be included were of course disappointed. If that's you, I apologise. The trouble was Fable 1's unfulfilled ambitions were genuinely in the feeling, so they got so...
Let us strive for peace. My sand will protect you.
Oh, I'm okay.
I win. It's funny how the why wins aren't that exciting. What was it, 6:30?
Once before on this channel, we shared our keen disappointment over the cancellation of promising games. These cancellations deprived us of the chance to enjoy great-looking games such as Pirates of the Caribbean, Armada of the Damned, Star Wars 1313, and Silent Hills, which never got to show us what it would be like to play a full game of PT. Probably for the best in my case. Still, despite us being sad on the internet, video games continue to get cancelled after giving us a glimpse of what they might be like. And, as we all know, the best games are the ones we never get to play. Here are 7 games that we'd love to play that are never going to see the light of day. Enjoy and beware spoilers ahead for your day, because man, it's sad again now.
This time around, we brought back we saved a lot of the really cool ideas for the next one.
Second art director Steven Spielberg is a man who digs video games. And it's this digging of video games we have to thank for the creation of Boomblocks, the physicsy block puzzler for the Nintendo Wii, on which the legendary movie maker collaborated.
From Steven Spielberg and Electronic Arts comes the ultimate blockbuster.
It's also presumably what we have to thank for the creation of upcoming game-themed movie Ready Player One, which contains more Easter eggs than supermarket shelves in January. Let us finish Christmas first. I only came here to escape, but I found something much bigger than just myself. What interests us most about Spielberg dabbling with video games, however, is the game we'll never get to play. Sci-fi adventure once known as LMNO. In another collaboration between Spielberg, the dude behind Jaws, and Electronic Arts, the publisher behind Boomblocks, LMNO would have been an action-adventure about an intriguing alien called Eve. In the game, which was only ever spied in action in this concept video, you had to help Eve evade and escape the authorities. Like BT, if BT could do parkour and was 40% less creepy. But only 40%. Ultimately, EA deemed the side project too ambitious and tangent, leaving us to forever wonder what would have happened to a strange little girl with special skills on the run from the man. And then special things come out, obviously.
You don't seem to belong here.
Project Rat Rabbit. Whatever happened to that?
If you've never played Parappa the Rapper, you're missing out. It is definitely in the top 3 games about the rapping girl of all time. Yeah. The game had you play as the eponymous Parappa, a dog who emptied his way through such daily tasks as having driving lessons,
Stab on the gas, stab on the brake,
queuing for the bathroom, and learning karate from an onion.
It's a fun game. It's a collector's game.
It was a brilliant When new game from Parappa's developers was announced as coming to Kickstarter, I was hype up to play the game. Hype up to play the game. That game was Project Rat Rabbit, a rhythm action game about a rapping bunny, a combination even more impressive when you learn it was set in 16th century Japan, some 400 years before hip-hop was actually invented. Unlike the rapping in Parappa the Rapper, which takes the form of jolly cooperation between MCs, Project Rat Rabbit was to take the form of rap battles against evil animal overlords, which gave you multiple choices on how to respond to a rival rapper's rhymes. Gameplay came in 3 phases. Listen, in which you listen to your opponent's verse.
That's our 3-star bold I've achieved.
Respond, in which you use a Mass Effect style conversation wheel to choose how to reply. And rap, in which you hit buttons in time, Parappa style, to spit hot fire about frogs or whatever.
let's live in the game, this ain't no race. Let's take a hissin' and get some on the kissin'. Yo, what's up?
How well you rap will affect your swag gauge, which is the key to determining whether you will succeed or fail.
We like rabbits. Tasties.
Unfortunately, Project Rat Rabbit fell well short of its £855,000 Kickstarter goal, and so the game was shelved, presumably indefinitely. Which is a shame because we're always up for more rhythm action games, and the retro-futuristic alternate history Japan of Legends looked like a super interesting setting for Nana Onsha's trademark quirky storytelling. Bad news for rhythm action game fans then. At least I'll keep making rock band games forever. Oh my god, now I'm really sad. Oh my god, now I'm really sad.
I think we can all agree that Silent Hills was going to be great. After all, it was a new entry in the consistently good Silent Star series, Guillermo del Toro and Norman Reedus, and was scarier than a midnight FaceTime call with Sadako from The Ring. But as we've covered previously, it's also deader than, well, the family of that dude from PT. So we were delighted when we saw footage from a game called Allison Road, a project clearly trying to continue PT's legacy of scaring people shitless in a suburban house. In the prototype gameplay released by developer Far From Home, we see an unnamed protagonist waking up in a suburban home and embarking on an epic quest for some aspirin. Before long, however, it becomes apparent that they are being stalked by one of those nightmarish ghost ladies who seem to be everywhere these days. Please stop. The deck to PT was pretty obvious from the gameplay released.
Which number is it, 1?
We again hope to keep you in suspense.
And it looked like it was going to offer you more to do than PT, since it had an inventory and equipable weapons that I can't imagine would do you much good against this thing. Ah! Anyway, in the brief glimpse we got of the game looked great. It's doing a really good job of ranking and calm.
Let's turn that down.
Bringing up the tension. And then going full-on horror movie. It was officially cancelled in June 2016, but the developers stated 2 months later that work was resuming on the game. That said, there are only 2 of them, and we haven't heard anything from them in almost 2 years. So we're not holding our breath. Well, I mean, we are, but that's the ghost thing.
of Guillermo del Toro long before he was a part of PT or making movie stories about fishmen. He was involved in another video game called Insane. Insane was set to be a survival horror game made by Del Toro in collaboration with developers Build-a-Bong, the team behind both the Red Faction and Saints Row series. The latter game's sensibilities would have translated to a survival horror game, we'll never know. I suppose it is pretty horrifying. The reason we'll never know is that despite being announced at the 2010 Spike Video Game Awards by Del Toro himself, publisher THQ cancelled the game in 2012 as the company started to go belly up. All we saw of the game was a 30-second teaser trailer that looked like a cool music video crossed with the tape from The Ring. But the reason we think Insane could have been brilliant is because of the people involved. There is Del Toro, a genius filmmaker and video game fan, who described his vision for the game as taking players to a place they have never seen before, where every single action makes them question their own senses of morality and reality. Which, I mean, this was 2010, so he hadn't played Candy Crush yet. Then there was comic book artist Johnny Davis, listed as one of the key designers on the game, who worked with Del Toro on Pacific Rim and Crimson Peak, as well as designs for his as-yet-introduced version of the Sea Podcast and Mountains of Madness. So you just know it was going to look beautiful and creepy and weird. Then there's developer Weedtone, with a great track record in making quality video games. I stand by my statement. Anyway, the intellectual property rights for Insane reverted back to Del Toro when the game was cancelled, so there's a chance it could be resurrected somewhere down the line. But considering how his unfinished projects based on At the Mountains of Madness, Halo, Pinocchio, The Witches, Justice League Dark, Van Helsing and Bioshock are going, we will know.
You might know Platinum Games as the team behind such excellent games as Vanquish, The Wonderful 101, and Bayonetta. And you might know Hideki Kamiya as the game director behind something only discount on Twitter. And though in 2017 Platinum was widely praised for Sleeper Hit Near Automata, it was bittersweet on account of how 2017 was also supposed to see the release of Platinum's Xbox-exclusive action RPG, Scalebound. Scalebound was to tell the story of Drew, a 20-something EDM enthusiast who looked more like he should be riding a razor around a Facebook office than fighting monsters. Luckily, he had a partner in the form of Dragon Fuban, who was inexplicably best friends with Drew. Maybe they met Drew had a bow, sword, and mines and could transform into a dragon-human hybrid to take down enemies, but he was aided immeasurably by Fuban, who you could command, telling it where to go and what to do when it got there. It's usually ready. What we had seen of Scalebound was really promising. There was the obvious pedigree of the team behind it, it looked super pretty, and the combat, as with most Platinum games, at least appeared satisfying and very, very cool. It had kind of a Monster Hunter World vibe, but without the thing where the monster runs off to a solid location while you plod after it, cursing your short human legs. Here, monsters just get deliciously flame-broiled by your scaly pal, saving you tons of legwork. Sadly, that's all we'll ever see of Scalebound, as Microsoft officially cancelled its development in January 2017. This is a shame, as the game was also set to feature co-op multiplayer from start to finish, as well as customizable dragons, something I was genuinely excited about after seeing it in the Scalebound presentation at Gamescom in 2015. And that isn't just because Kamiya was in the room and I was scared of what he told me on Twitter if I didn't seem enthusiastic enough. Legacy of Kain is a series with a cult following. It's most closely associated with development studio Crystal Dynamics, of recent Tomb Raider fame. Gaining popularity on the original PlayStation, Legacy of Kain followed a disfigured and emaciated vampire called Weedtone. It was an open world action adventure game that had you shifting between the real world and a sort of spectral dark world. Sort of like Zelda Link to the Past, if Link occasionally took a break from smashing pots to drain a defenseless creature of all its blood. Legacy of Kain's Dead Son, which had been handed off to a developer called Climax, was going to be the game that dragged this beloved series into the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation. In particular, it featured a nifty transition between the real and the spectral worlds, which in this game were substantially different environments. That's probably why they never finished it, because they were making twice as much game as anyone else. In the end, and with $7 million spent, Legacy of Kain's Dead Son was cancelled by publisher Square Enix. After similar games passing on the original color tank harder than Bones and Tank Museum. Open 10 to 5 daily. Even Sunday. Still, fans of Legacy of Kain must have gotten used to it. There have been 10 games cancelled in a grand game development run, and there's only produced 5 Legacy of Kain that have actually been released. Casualties include Pillars of Nostar, Siren, Shifter, Legacy of Kain's Dark Prophecy, and Shakhan Queens of Neverland. And most of the about that one.
Oketra's love is your shield.
At least we eventually got to play the multiplayer mode for Legacy of Kain's Dead Son, which was being built by a separate team called Psyonix, and became a free play from Nostar, which went into open beta back in 2015. And promptly closed down in 2016 before its official release. 11 cancelled games. Are you going to think of that?
Last 1,000 years, you would think, and so we did think, back when Toys to Life sandbox series Disney Infinity was flying high and selling toys like nobody's business. And yet, in the end, the empire lasted a mere 3 years between the launch of the first game in 2013 and when, not long after the launch of Disney Infinity 3.0, Disney put an end to the series in 2016. I mean, 3 years, that's not exactly infinity, is it? Until this rip-off with that unlimited brunch place kicked me out.
Kick you out or put you in the hospital?
My lord. Yeah, as a result, we never get to play Disney Infinity 4.0 with Unity
Now is the time to strike.
Project was Disney Infinity 3's add-on playset for Finding Dory. Oh, that forgetful fish. Just saying 9 pancakes isn't unlimited pancakes. They didn't say anything about reasonable limits when I came into the brunch plate. Reports say that the 4th Disney Infinity game, which had been mooted to put together box office smash hits Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Thor Ragnarok, Star Wars The Last Jedi, and Pixar's Coco. And also Pirates of the Caribbean Desmond Field. If you're going in the form of a Disney Infinity action figure, can you really recreate the real plasticky look of Johnny Depp's face in that young Jack Sparrow in CGI in that one scene? Regardless, the dazzling sci-fi worlds of Thor Ragnarok would have been amazing to see rendered in the like stylings of Disney Infinity, and the Day of the Dead skeleton figurines for Coco would have looked wicked on my mantelpiece. Not only that, but rumour had it that the cancelled 4th Disney Infinity game was going to be straight-up story mode, in which, at long last, you could play an entire story with any character in the game, swapping the canonical streams, whether it made sense or not. And finally, I'd get to play Poe Dameron, Nicholas Fletcher's
I will guard your advance.
Have you said anything about pancakes?
Enemy's necrographs are gaining on us. What's our next move?
That question implies there was some sort of plan to be
Thanks for watching this video about the best games. Always been good from the start, so there's no quality.
Oh, what am I thinking?
That's about the 8 best games that you can play, but you might have missed because
We must adjust our tactics.
As with any creative project, the final versions of video games often differ wildly from the original concept. Like this video started out as a list about pictures of dogs and hats we saw on the internet, until we realised that had nothing to do with video games. Whether the original concept was too technically demanding, not good-looking enough, or met with critical disapproval, gaming history is full of games which were barely recognisable from their original form when they finally landed on shop shelves. Join us now as we look at some of our favourites.
I trust in your ability.
Remember when 2011's Duty Forever was originally announced? Maybe not, because it's entirely possible to be a young adult human who wasn't even alive when the game originally started development. Duty Forever took about 15 years in total to develop. Over the course of that development, it changed dramatically. And I'm not just talking about changing dramatically from a game that everyone wanted to play to a game that no one wanted to play. The original version of Duty Forever
Damn, I make this look good.
This first trailer, in which you engages in thrilling shootouts from the back of a moving truck, rides minecarts like Indiana Jones, and ducks low-flying fighter jets, debuted at E3 back in 1998. For historical context, that's the same E3